Hi, today I'm going to show you how to make a quilt sleeve for the back of your quilt so you can hang it on the wall. One that doesn't show from the front and is really great for any kind of thickness of rod that you will be using. So to start off, let's go over our materials. You will need your quilt, of course, that you're going to be hanging, as well as a 9-inch piece of fabric that is a couple inches shorter than the width of your quilt. So measure your width of your quilt and adjust the length what you need. I just cut width to width on the bolts, 9 inches, and this comes a little short, so my corners are going to be hanging a little bit, but this is for my home, so I'm not too worried about that. You do want your sleeve to be a little closer to the edge, maybe an inch, inch and a half away from your binding. You don't need it to go all the way, but sometimes if you get too far in, it makes your corners a little floppy, like ear tags or something. So anyways, the width of fabric works fine for my quilt that I'm using, but if you need to make any adjustments, go right ahead and do that. The next step we will be doing is pressing the fabric or your sleeve. Okay, so get your pressing board out or your iron board, and the first thing you're going to do is fold this strip halfway. So you're just gonna, it right sides out is just fine. So you're just gonna find the half and you are gonna press along that outside seam, not seam, fold line. All right, and then just continue all the full length of your fabric strip that you have for the sleeve. For some reason it's got off a little bit. There we go. Give it a good press. Next step is you're going to open this up, and that pressing, that crease is now going to be your guide for the next step. So we're going to use this crease, and we are going, I'm going to turn this so I have a better view here. So you open it up, and then you're going to use this crease as your guideline. You're going to fold the edge to that center crease line and press that. You're going to repeat it with the other side. So fold it right into the center and press that. Make sure that you want to leave that press line from the first step. So don't press the center down because that will disappear. You're just using it as a guide, but you do need that center line again in the next step. So just make sure you press the outside edges. Those are going to be a guide for stitching later on. So continue to just fold to the center crease as your guideline and press it down. I've got one last little bit here. All right, so I have all my, so if I turn it the other way, you're going to notice that there are 3 seam or press creases. Got the center one, and then I've got the 2 on the outer side. So now that I have this all pressed correctly, I'm going to take this, and again, just using the crease line that I already have, I'm going to fold it in half, and I'm going to stitch down on this side. A 1/4 inch seam is just fine. All right, so now that I have my seams all set ready, I am going to just stitch straight down this edge. 1/4 inch seam is fine, so make any adjustments that you need. And because I've pressed it already, I know that that seam or the edges are together, so I just have to sew it. make a quick readjustment there. Gonna do a back stitch. I should have done one at the beginning to secure it, but that's all right. Okay, and then I'm going to cut my threads, and now I have my tube ready to go for the next step. All right, now that I have my tube ready to go, I am going to be stitching or pinning this down to the back of my quilt. So what I want to do is kind of open up my tube and kind of flop it around a little bit and get that seam on the center of the back side. All right, so there we go. And just continue down the tube and kind of make that adjustment. Gonna have to kind of flop it out a little bit. Shake it out and make sure that that gets pulled out. That way we have these crease lines to help us with the placement of the pins and the stitching on the back of the quilt. All right, this last little bit's not wanting to separate. There we go. I found if I stuck my hand in the end, it helped as well. Turn that seam to the back side. Right to the center of it. Okay, there we go. All right, so now I'm going to grab my quilt. You will want to make sure that the correct up is up on your quilt. So check the front a couple times and make sure that you're actually attaching this to the right side or the right location, the top or the bottom. So when you hang your quilt, it's not upside down. So first thing I'm going to do is fold my quilt in half, and then I'm going to mark the center with like a pin. That way I know exactly where my center is, and that helps actually place the hanging sleeve. Okay, so with my sleeve, I'm going to find the center of this as well. So I'm going to fold it in half really quick. Either mark it with a pin or use the pin that we had already. And actually, I think I just might mark it with a pin to make things easy here. Okay, so now I've got that marked with a pin. I can take my sleeve and get it into place. So let me fold this over and move this just inside. There we go. All right, so I'm going to take my pin out, but I still know my center is about right here. What you are going to do is using that top crease seam that we made with the iron, we are going to make sure that that is flat against the quilt. It's going to be a little poofy. And then on the bottom here, we're going to use do the same thing on the bottom. We're going to find that bottom crease, and we're going to kind of pull it just a little bit to make sure that we're not like pinning it way up here, even though we found the crease and we're way up here. That's not correct. So you want to pull on it just a little bit, make sure it's in the right, and then I'm going to pin it really quick just to hold it in place so we can get started on safety pin or hand stitching. So now I need to grab my safety pins. Right. So now that we have it in place, we are going to safety pin the quilt top to the sleeve. These are not the greatest safety pins, but for right now they will work. You don't need a whole lot of safety pins because they'll distribute the weight, but you do need quite a few. Because these are smaller, I need to probably use a bunch, but Use larger safety pins if you have them around. That would probably be best. Okay, so what I'm going to do with the safety pin is, here's a better one. I am going to go through the sleeve, and then I'm going to lift this up just a little bit so you can see it a little bit better. I'm going to take my pin out. So I'm going to go through the sleeve, okay, and then I'm going to go only through the back fabric of the quilt top. And you're not going to be able to see too much of that. But if I flip it over to the front, you do not see any safety pins. So I'm only pinning through the sleeve and the back of the quilt top. So I'm just going to continue safety pinning all the way along, making sure that, you know, if you need to measure from the binding to the crease line to make sure that your top line is stays consistent. So I'm going to move over a couple inches. I'm going to go through my binding and through my just the backing fabric. All right. I'm going to repeat that process with the bottom here. So I'm going to make sure that my crease line is down on the bottom and it's straight. And then I'm going to safety pin that as well. Let's get these apart or not. There we go. So I'm going to just take my safety pin and go through the back, the quilt sleeve, and the backing fabric. And I'll do one more. And if you go through the front, no big deal. Just pull the safety pin out and redo it. So it looks like I'm good. Okay, so the reason you want to do have a little bit of give right here is if you put a rod that is circular or round or a thick piece of wood or whatever, however you're hanging your rod or hanging your quilt, you will need some kind of give on this sleeve so it doesn't pull on your quilt top when you hang it. Because if it's too tight in there, it's going to pull on your quilt top either at the top or the bottom, and it's going to make it really off when you hang it, and it doesn't work very well. So this little give, you know, and there's like a good probably one inch in there. That allows you to have thickness in the rod so your quilt will hang properly. Now, if you wanted to hand stitch this down, it's the same process as far as placing it on your back, making sure you have your crease lines in the right place, pin it, center it, and then you will need to stitch it. So I have my needle and thread ready. I'm going to start a knot in it. All right, I think I've got a knot in that end. Good. And I'm going to just continue where I left off with the safety pin. So the stitching works just as well. Again, you are only going to be stitching through the back fabric of the quilt to the sleeve. And I'm just picking. So I went through my back, I traveled through my back. You don't see the needle going through the front at all. It's only the back fabric. Got a little close up here. It's only the back fabric. And then when I want to come out, I just come up and catch the hanging sleeve and come up. And then I'm going to go down just right above my stitch, travel through my sleeve again, and then when I come up, I'm going to catch the edge of that sleeve. You can pin the sleeve in place if you need, so you don't start going all crooked, because that's a big possibility. And you just keep going until you're at the end. So what I like about, I'm just going to take a couple stitches here and end it. Put my needle in. What I like about using the safety pins is that you can quickly take these off and put them on another quilt, or it's just temporary. So you're not adding anything to the back of your quilt, you're not adjusting anything, but you can easily, you know, add and remove this sleeve whenever you want to repurpose it for another project, or just to remove it completely and so you can use it on your couch or whatever else if you're done hanging it. So that is the process of making your quilt sleeve. If you're looking for more quilting tutorials, visit patchworkposse.com and don't forget to subscribe.